Hello, hello, everyone. I am your host, Pat626, and it's time for another episode of Subculture Talk. This week, I am featuring Mach FoX of Zwaremachine. How's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Well, I can see you and I can hear you, and I consider that that's always all we need to have a successful interview. So already we're at 100%.
Yep. I can't see you, but I'll just pretend we're on the phone.
Yeah, no, it's good. You don't want to see this anyway.
Oh, yeah. I love watching your streams. It's a good time.
Well, thank you. So, for those of you that didn't know, yes, I've been doing Subculture Shock as a radio show for 5 years now. As an internet radio show. But Mach FoX is actually from the before times when I was on WNRN. And we recently looked back at the calendar and at the playlists and did the math, and we have known each other for 12 years now.
Wow.
Back when you sent me your first track was New Dead Pretty was the first track you ever sent me, followed by the Carousel.
Yeah, I was doing an electro goth rock band called Mach FoX in those days, and yeah, you had a cool playlist going, so I was like sending it to DJs that, I thought might get into some electro goth rock. And you were nice enough to play it. That was really cool. You were a good supporter right from the start.
Well, and then the thing that I love about our friendship is that, I was happy to play your music, but that you would always, every time I played it, kind of pump it up, and that's continued when I came back. You were actually one of the first people to send me music as soon as I said, hey, folks, I'm DJing again. I'm doing it online now. And I made a call for hey, who's got new music for me to play? And you were one of the first people. Hey.
Yeah, I was excited about that. I think at that time I didn't realize you had taken a break for a while, but I thought it was cool that we were in contact again via Facebook.
And so I want to talk first, of course, whenever you have an interview with someone for the first time, I want to talk real quick about your supervillain origin story, as we call it, about how you got started doing music as Mach FoX to begin with. But then I want to talk about the interim period, because by the time I came back to doing music, then all of a sudden you were Zwaremachine. And I want to see how you started and then what changed. Where did Zwaremachine come from?
Well, I kind of came from I played guitar a lot, and I grew up kind of playing a lot of punk rock and alternative rock and pop punk kind of bands. And it was always bands. By the time I got to Mach FoX, I wanted to drive the ship myself. I didn't want to be in a band situation where you're, voting on, okay, how's this part going to go? Things would take forever. Sometimes it was just too hard to get 4 people in the same room at the same time.
It's like trying to make a D&D group.
Yeah, exactly. Like anything, you got to have committed people to make that thing move ahead. And I also I liked drum machines and sequencers quite a bit, so I was having a lot of fun programming them. I was terrible at programming drums, but I just liked the drum machine sound. So I started doing Mach FoX as a solo project, and then once I made a record, I thought, well, now I need to put a band together to pull it off live. So it became, Mach FoX became like a vehicle to play electro rock or whatever you want to call it. We had a little bit of a goth side, but, and then it became Zwaremachine when Mach FoX kind of ran its course. It was, again, once it became a band, I was doing a lot of the records and recording myself, and then getting people in to, not so much write with me, but play the parts live. So Zwaremachine kind of came out of that too, where I I wanted to move on from Mach FoX. I wanted to do something more electro-industrial, maybe a little more techno-y at the time I thought it was, but things never turn out like I planned as far as genres go. So it became the same thing where it was a project that I would record myself and then try to put a band together to perform it live.
I feel like the genre fits, at least for the background that you've got going on right now, because I was telling you before we started recording that you kind of look like you're in an industrial bunker.
Yeah, I'm in the Fox den, so we got some high-tech equipment going on here. No, it's just I like to pile up all these weird things and plug them all in, and this is kind of the backdrop we use when we do live streaming in my studio at home.
Okay, so your bandmate is in chat here and has a question. So, question to Mach FoX. What do you love more, drum machines or Dynoffizier?
Well, they kind of go hand in hand. I wouldn't want one without the other, probably. But I do love Dynoffizier because I can look over at him and he's singing the words with me. The drum machine doesn't sing.
Well, or if it does, it sounds like Siri. But so
true.
So at this point, Zwaremachine is at least live. It's a band. Are you still doing the majority of the recording on your own, or how is it shaking out at this point?
Well, no. The first album, Be a Light, was more something I was able to put together that album by playing live, as I was sort of also rehearsing and auditioning band members live on stage. Like I would get, I always envisioned it as a 3-piece. So I would get my 3-piece together. We'd go play these songs. Now, some of them didn't make the first Zwaremachine album because they just didn't fit what we were doing. But I was able to make that record myself over, maybe a year and a half. And I was able to play the songs live. Now with this second full-length album, Conquest 3000, that was much more of a band effort. A lot of those songs were written by D-Bot, the bass player for Zwaremachine. And when I started working on the second album, I had a lot of song ideas, but I didn't think they were great. So I hit him up and I said, hey, do you got any, he sequences, he's got his own projects. He writes very melodic, way differently than I write. So I said, what do you got, that we can maybe try to use for demos? And he started pouring all these songs at me, and they had great science fiction titles already. So that set me off on that album being a concept album right away. And so, yeah, now we're much more of a band, though, I would say, where, we don't always all get together and write in the same room, but I'm not writing everyone's part. I'm not the sole guy recording and mixing everything. It's more of a project, and we're working with other producers and mix engineers. So it's evolved quite a bit in that respect.
So not trying to get you in hot water with your bandmates, but at the beginning you told me how when you were in other bands, you didn't like the writing by committee that was necessary when all the band was working on the songs together. So you formed Mach FoX as a solo project in order to get away from that. Now that Zwaremachine has kind of morphed back into that, are you enjoying the process more? Do you think that maybe what you needed was the right people to work with, or did you need to grow as an artist before, find your own footing as a writer before you could start writing with other people?
Well, I didn't. It wasn't only the process of voting and the committee thing. It was the fact that things took a long time.
Yeah. And
just getting everyone together. These guys I'm working with now, it's really easy to work with because D-Bot, the bass player, for instance, he doesn't have a weird ego about his parts. You know, I kind of tell him, I say, I may edit your part to a really something kind of tame for the recorded version of the song, but I tell him, when we get live on stage, do what you have to do to make it fun to play. You know, you don't have to play that one note the whole time. You can do what you think you want to do. So I guess a lot, you know, and it was hard working on Conquest 3000 album, working with so many different producers and songwriters. Things went a lot slower. I tend to move really fast and commit to things. If I don't like something, I just omit it and move on. I don't dwell on things, and I don't know. I like to move at a fast pace when I'm recording, and that's been the main hindrance of working with a band, and it still is, I guess. But I just accept that now, that the next record is going to take a while, but it's going to be worth the work and the effort.
Well, I definitely feel like Conquest 3000 was one of the most mature pieces that you as an artist have ever put out. Like, so I think that you know, whether it's taking your time with it, whether it's using all of the experience that you had before, or, you know, a combination of all these things, I think it's some of your strongest work. So I think it's worth the wait if it's going to take a little while longer. That's probably also why you have like 2 other projects going on right now as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that about Conquest 3000, and it should be noted that the reason that probably does sound as good as it does, if people think that it sounds good, is because the other people were involved. If, you know, when it's just one person doing something, you can really focus, you can do what you want, but maybe it's not the best thing to always do what you want. When I was working on these other songs, it brought me to a different place because they were more melodic, but I also wanted to make sure they were Zwaremachine sounding. So I took what D-Bot gave me for the demos, and I tried to make something minimal and hypnotic, which was kind of our Zwaremachine thing, and it turned out it was the vocals. So there's a lot of repetitive vocal parts, there's a lot of editing and looping of the vocals, but that was one way I was able to keep it true to Zwaremachine and kind of make a statement that felt like it was the band still, even though we recorded it quite differently. And then, yeah, having Mach FoX, being able to release stuff that didn't make the Zwaremachine album, but we all recorded as a band, that was a good outlet. And then the other band, Fox Nova Project, that's just been really cool and fun because that's a lot of freedom too. And it's me and one other guy, Craig Saunders. He's from Nova Kill and Nova State Machine. And so it's just him and I, and we don't really we let each other each do what we want to do, sort of thing. There's not a lot of, we collaborate in a sense because we make the music together, but we each do what we need to do.
So it's not so much a compromise as much as like, this is just all happening at the same time for a Fox Nova project?
Yeah, and it luckily it sort of works that way. It works pretty well. We're both usually happy with the outcome. And for me, I don't know how he feels about it. I can't speak for him as much, but I feel like there's something special and unique about it. Like it's got a I don't know, it's just got this vibe that's menacing, and I like that.
Well, so which is funny because like as far as just personality, you've got to be one of the kindest people I know. And but then your music is just in general is this very like harsh, menacing thing. Do you, like where does that come from? Like talking to you right now, you're a very emotive, friendly guy. Where does the shouting, gravelly voice of Zwaremachine or the more threatening aura of Fox Nova Project come from?
Well, with Zwaremachine, that's kind of like the 15-year-old me. I mean, I liked punk rock. Bands like The Clash and the Dead Kennedys, like, they informed me about a lot of political things and a lot of things that went on in the world. That they opened my eyes to a lot of things. So I feel like I still write from a skeptical punk kind of stance, and maybe that's the shouting and stuff. With Fox Nova Project, I feel like, I don't know, I kind of feel like that's a little more forward sounding maybe for me, if that makes sense. It's not a Zwaremachine. I feel like we're kind of retro. We went from like a 80s EBM on the first record maybe to like now we've moved up into the 90s, you know, a little more aggro style dark electro. Yeah, I don't know. My bands, I always have had, especially with Mach FoX and even bands before that, I liked to, you know, bring lights, costumes, kind of gear up and get into a different character for being on stage. Something I got from Ziggy Stardust probably also.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that as more of a industrial band, you're listing off all of these influences like punk and David Bowie and stuff, but listening to your music in the background right now, that I kind of see it too. Just the repetitive shouted vocals. It's very minimalist punk. And I was gonna ask, you know, what informs kind of the politicism of your lyrics, but I that makes sense that it tends to come from the punk side of things, because I felt like Conquest 3000, despite having such a science fiction name to it, and a lot of the song titles, like, you know, Conquest 3000 and Zero Containment thing, International Hero. I wasn't expecting a political album, and that's very much what we got.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Science fiction and horror has always driven a lot of themes in my music. You know, and I feel like, especially when we all went through the pandemic, I know lots of people are singing about lots of this stuff, and I don't want to say it's cliche, but it seemed a lot more fun to me when I was doing it, and it was like a far off science fiction world. Now it's almost true. You know, half the songs on Conquest 3000 I produced with a musician from Ireland named Darren Corey, and those were the songs from the Ripping at the Fabric EP. And so in the context of a thematic album or a concept album, those were the modern day songs. Stuff like International Hero, those are today. International Hero, Ripping at the Fabric, Resist, New Design, those are songs that are rooted in today, whereas the other 5 songs that D-Bot and I did the demos for, and we produced with Plank Tune, who's my Swedish producer friend, those are set in the year 3000, when we're absolutely doomed. You know, everyone's who has money has already left the planet, and we're just left to rot with no resources until we die, basically.
You know, that's actually something that that's really cool, because listening
it's not cool.
Well, no, it's not cool. But the fact that there's some stuff rooted in today and some stuff rooted in this future apocalyptic vision is cool, because as a listener, I was simply thinking of it as stuff like just happening now. Because even like a song like Conquest 3000, you know, we could have been something else.
Yeah.
But you chose corporate wealth. And so this idea of it being about, you know, everyone who had money leaving the planet, that's a perspective that I hadn't even considered, which I think speaks to the timelessness of some of your lyrics, because you can also apply that to what's happening right now. That the people that have corporate wealth aren't using it for anything but the continuation of their corporate wealth.
Well, yeah, that comes from the punk days too. I mean, you know, you certainly have your right to be a capitalist and make all the money you want, but if that's the most important thing for you, it's already a doomed society. I feel like we could have all been wealthy enough, and we could have all been looking out for each other a little more, you know, the whole time. But I know you touch on a lot of these things too. People just aren't that way. Like, not everyone's cares about other people at all. So
and I have yet to figure out how to make anyone care about other people that don't.
Unfortunately, I gave up on a lot of that stuff in about 1985. I sort of dropped
so long ago.
I know, but you know, when you see when my eyes were open to what goes on and how it's so corrupt and out of my control, I sort of gave up and just went into my fantasy sci-fi world of horror and just dwell there, you know, where I don't get so burdened down by the woes of the world. And you know, maybe that's an escapist cop-out, but it's where I've been and how I'm able to survive.
You know, but I don't know if it's as much of a cop-out as you're making it out to be, though, because these songs can still be used as anthems for people still dealing with that stuff as well. I mean, you know, I mentioned that I was kind of surprised that these songs with sci-fi titles ended up being so political. But if I take half a second, most of the sci-fi that we grew up on and that's still being made today was and is very political.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's a very strong force in a lot of bands' music, or a lot of musicians and artists, and, you know, not just in music, art, painters, writers. I mean, and we all deal with it on a certain level, you know. That's great if people can take it for what I'm saying. You know, the songs that were outtakes from the Conquest 3000 album, I kind of looked at the lyrics on those, and they're more melodic. The music is more melodic, but also the lyrics, that's maybe that's seeing the optimistic side. You know, a song like Quasar, that was on the Hollow Moons EP, you know, the lyrics are something like a start, a place to be, a part of this huge galaxy, or whatever the lyrics are. But there's a little optimism in some of the stuff. Maybe not so much on Conquest 3000. That's a bit more angry and pessimistic, but, you know, there was some light in all of that.
That makes sense, that why you would separate them, especially since you were trying to go for Conquest 3000 as a bit more of a concept album. There probably wasn't room for any happiness in there.
Well, no, the way I had the album all sequenced out with 10 songs, and, you know, 5 of them ended up being the Mach FoX Hollow Moons EP. The way they were sequenced out, there was a story arc. I felt like, you know, and it kind of told the story, at least in the threads in my head, the way they worked out. But, you know, I'm okay with how we did it, because some of them just weren't going to be performed live.
Right.
So that's one thing with Zwaremachine is, for me, it's a live vehicle. It's not a studio band. It's only songs on the record are songs that we would want to play live as a band. So that's kind of dictated what songs were outtakes.
Whereas like Fox Nova Project and Mach FoX, that's more, that doesn't have to be performed live. That can just be studio.
Yeah, and I would, you know, some of those songs, in fact, I performed the whole Conquest 3000 album a couple times live, billed as Mach FoX, because I was just trying those songs out live. They were more the demo versions, but I was working out the live vocal arrangements and stuff. So, you know, those were performed live, and I've talked to D-Bot, the bass player, about maybe performing, you know, as Mach FoX again, but that's not a priority for us at all. And Fox Nova Project, you know, I'd love to play some of those songs live. I just don't we haven't ever talked about that, and it would be hard to pull together, I think.
Well, especially because what is a live show right now, even?
Well, yeah, exactly.
So, that said, you have managed to keep busy despite the lack of live shows occurring right now, and that brings me to a music video that you just released today, in fact, which was a cover of Effigy by Ministry.
Yeah. D-Bot, our bass player, the bass player in Zwaremachine, we were performing that as Mach FoX and the Glampires. That was our cover band. We usually play a Halloween gig, and that was one of the songs we were doing, and he loved that bass line. And he's been bugging me he's like, yeah, we should play that again. And I finally told him, I said, well, you know, I would love to do it, but I don't want to sequence it up. I said, I said, if you want to get it going again, let's do it. And he came up with a cool instrumental version, and he gave it to me, and I said, yeah, this is something we can do. I don't know that we'll play it live, but we definitely wanted to just have a fun, we've been messing around with a few covers behind the scenes, and some of them we play live, and we're starting to record them now so we can release them. But that's just not a huge priority. It was just a fun project, and he said he wanted to do it, and he put in the effort, so I said, okay, we can release that.
So what makes you want to make a video out of it then?
So I spent 5 weeks with Kitty, who's my girlfriend and the manager of the band. I spent 5 weeks with her in the Netherlands over the holidays. And shortly after I got there, things were restricted again because of COVID and the new variants and stuff. So, I mean, it was great. We spent a lot of time together, but we hadn't planned on making a video. A lot of times when I go over to the Netherlands, we have a lot of plans to get together with Dine Officier, do photo shoots, meet up with friends. I have lots of friends in France and Belgium, and it wasn't possible to meet up with people and do things like that. And I wanted to be safe. So, I think I came up with the idea. I said, well, what do you think about shooting a video for this Ministry cover, and we'll just find some locations. And it was pretty cool that we went out there to some locations around the city, and the streets were wet because it was winter, and it was just desolate. She said she'd never seen the city like that. She said it was kind of eerie and surreal how empty it was. And I think only one shot we didn't use one time because a bike went by in the street behind me. And nobody would have seen it in the video probably, but we caught it, and I was like, well, we can't have just one other, if there's no one in the video, then let's keep it that way.
We can't have one person there. One person just ruins it.
Yeah, they ruined the moment. And they were just having a nice bike ride at night,
You and your
but
bikes.
It was fun. Well, I hadn't when I said let's make a video and we started picking locations, until I saw some of the footage when we got back. We took several nights to record different places and try different things. Until I saw that footage later, I was like, wow, this looks kind of special and unique. Like we made an 80s video and we have our own closed set. Like when they wet the streets down and all that. So I thought it was really fun. And so we kind of built on that.
One of the few advantages of COVID-19, apparently.
Yeah, I hate to say it was an advantage or a good thing, but it did create a unique atmosphere.
Hey, the phrase silver lining exists for a reason, all right?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it was like we could have never done that in any other circumstance. Or, sometimes you wait till like 3 or 4 in the morning to go out and do your renegade filming when you need that kind of stuff. But we were doing, I think it was like 9 or 10 at night.
Really? Because it does.
Yeah.
I thought just from seeing the footage that it was done at like 3 in the morning.
No, that's how desolate it was. There just wasn't anyone around. And I also, sometimes when you're doing that, you feel a little self-conscious when I'm up there mouthing the words, making those scary faces. that you mentioned, you know, it's like when someone walks by, you're like trying to like not feel self-conscious about it, but we didn't have that problem either.
So for those of you that have not seen the video yet, because I haven't said this on camera yet, the faces in that video, some of those faces, like I jumped a little bit, like you, just very, very impressively frightening.
Well, there's a bit of angst in that song, at least in our version, you know. So
and man, what a segue that is, because I was actually highly impressed that you chose Effigy, because here you are, you know, kind of a more harder edged industrial band. So when I think of covering a Ministry song as that band, I figured you would do like more of a harder edged Ministry song, considering, you know, most of Ministry's career is more industrial metal. So to find that you went to their synth pop album with Sympathy, put a big smile on my face.
Well, that's one thing I try to do. In most of the bands I've been in, if we do a cover, at least with Mach FoX and Zwaremachine, if we're doing a cover, I kind of do that. With Mach FoX, we used to cover All Day and All of the Night, the Kinks song.
Yeah.
And we like half-timed it. So we would slow it down and creep it out. And when you listen to the lyrics and you slow it down and play it like we did, it becomes like a stalker song. Like the lyrics become like it's a stalker telling his story, you know? So I want to be with you all day and all of the night. And
oh my God.
I try to do that with our songs. I'm not going to pick something that's in our genre necessarily and try to sound like a band that we already, you know, kind of live in that world. I want to take like a rock song or a pop song and creep it out a little bit, or, you know, make it our own somehow. I'm not trying to recreate the original track at all.
Well, I appreciate that, because honestly, there are bands that do that, and I'm like, okay, you have technical skill, you reproduce, you know, Depeche Mode's Enjoy the Silence perfectly, but why don't I just go listen to the Depeche Mode version instead?
Well, and that's how I feel, but it's a thin line too, because you can ruin someone's favorite song by doing your own version of it. But I was really happy when I talked to some DJs who responded about that song. I think that song got more response, like personal messages from people, than any of our original songs have got. Like people were writing me messages, like DJs and friends saying, you know, oh, that's one of my favorite Ministry songs, and I love your version, or stuff like that. So that made me feel really good that I didn't ruin it for them.
Oh, absolutely. Honestly, I hadn't listened to that album in a long time, and hearing your version of it kind of made me pull it out again and listen to it. And I'm of course one of those people that really loves With Sympathy. I know that Jorgensen has his own opinions about it, but I love that album to death, and I think it's great when you can like rekindle my love for an album, but at the same time it's not like, well, I'm just going to go listen to the original because this was terrible. No, I listened to the original and then came back to yours and was really impressed that without changing any lyrics, you changed the whole mood of the song.
Well, yeah, and one thing that happened, the lyrics got a little shifted. Like, I feel like my delivery was, and I mean, this was intentional because I was trying to find a way to make it Zwaremachine.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to, I think I even had a version where I sang it a little nicer and like maybe like what I would consider Mach FoX style. But then I went back and I made it the ugly Zwaremachine vocals. And one other thing I have to say about that song, my friend Sin from the band Malice Machine, he played guitar on it. Because you know, I do play guitar, but man, tuning a guitar, holding it, playing it, that's a lot of work. So Dave gave me the cool instrumental track and it had everything on there. And I think before we always when we played it live, there was no synth, and we were doing it with 2 guitars and a bass and live drums. So I was like, I'd really like to have guitar on this version. And Sin was really cool. He's very good at guitar. He's professional. He just sent me back the track and it was ready to go. And I was really happy with how that came together.
I love that story basically started, like it ends with, yeah, I got this great track and this sounds really good. But it started with, yeah, I'm just kind of, I was feeling lazy and didn't want to tune my guitar.
Well, that's why I asked someone else to play guitar too, because I was like, you know what, there's people who are better at guitar than I am. I'm a little bit out of practice, every time I pick up the guitar again, like for instance for Fox Nova Project, I pulled it out for some of those songs, and I've just realized if you don't play it for a while, you kind of lose your chops. So, and that was, that Effigy song, it was important that the guitar be tight and good. Like, he just made it sound good and he played it really well. So I got to thank him for that, and everyone needs to know that he played guitar on that song.
Well, and that kind of brings me to what I was saying about I really like what you did with the mood of the song, because the original is like, it's angsty, but it's also kind of playful in its nature, and the guitar plays to that in a big way, whereas this mix and your delivery of it is more just like in your face, almost angry, just playing like, no, I'm not an effigy. Like there's less of a playful aspect to it and more of a, I am done with this shit. Sure. And I thought that was really cool that you could manage to do that without changing the lyrics at all.
Well, and the one thing I always thought to myself, it was always funny, is the lyrics in there where it's kind of a refrain or a bridge part where the lyrics are, I'm not angry, I'm not angry. And I sing that the meanest delivery of the whole song. Yeah. So I always that things like that always crack me up, and those are personal things that maybe only I like pay attention to, but I like that kind of stuff, the juxtaposition.
You're not the only one paying attention to it. Like that's why I'm bringing it up, because I really appreciate stuff like that. I appreciate there's an interplay between like the connotation or the denotation of the actual lyrics and the connotation of the vocal delivery, and I feel like that's a zone where you thrive. I felt that way about International Hero, actually, which is, if you're not Mach FoX and you can actually hear the music in the background, that's the song playing currently. I felt like there was some of that in there, like that overnight International Hero. There's almost something sarcastic in the way that you're saying that I think goes completely against what just the phrasing would normally mean. And I think that's considering the, like you talked about, the necessity of the repetitive minimalist lyrics, you do so much with your delivery of them to broaden the space.
Well, and it's interesting, the International Hero, that was from the Ripping at the Fabric EP, which became half of the Conquest 3000 album, but we took it back into the studio. We added, because the Ripping at the Fabric EP was just me and Darren Corey, and it wasn't intended as Zwaremachine tracks. When we did the initial recordings, he was sending me music and I was arranging it and singing it. I think he wanted to like work on an EBM project, and I think he wanted something more like Nitzer Ebb style vocal delivery, and I was kind of, to myself, I was thinking, well, I can cop, 9 Inch Nails or Nitzer Ebb and kind of fake my way through and sound like that, but I really wanted to do my own thing with it, and I was inspired by his track, so I kind of tried to be myself more, but I wasn't thinking in a Zwaremachine headspace. So later on, when we were working on the Conquest 3000 album and scrapping, we were getting outtakes, I decided I would take the Ripping at the Fabric EP back into the studio. We added D-Bot he played bass on the tracks. We added him into the mix, and we got Dine Officer on those tracks. And I brought him in the studio, and we mixed them for the album versions. And yeah, so that just carried over. I mean, it does feel like Zwaremachine, especially now with those guys on it. And the vocal delivery is a high energy, you know, something, like I say, something we would perform live. Like, I'm looking forward to playing that song live. International Hero, I think, is definitely in the live set.
That brings us to what is unfortunately a feature on Subculture Talk right now because of the time that we're in, where we kind of talk about the effect that the pandemic has had on everyone's music. And we talked a little bit about how it affected some of your relationship to your lyrics. We talked a little bit about how the one silver lining in the video, how you were able to get so much of a desolate feeling in it. But I've mentioned live shows with everybody I've interviewed so far, and before we actually went live tonight, you were mentioning something that I hadn't thought of before that was really fascinating to me. You were talking about how you're basically having to retrain yourself to play live.
Well, yeah, we were kind of ramping things up. The band, it was like the best band I ever, you know, the trio for Zwaremachine is the most powerful trio I've had. I'm so proud of those guys and like how we can sound on stage. It's just something that I feel like has some uniqueness to it, and I want to bring it to more people. But yeah, right when the pandemic hit is right when we started doing that as this trio. And so we were able to record the album still. You know, I actually went to the Netherlands in 2020. That was the last time I was there until just over the holidays. And I was able to record Dine Officer, our drummer who lives there, while I was there for all the songs for the album. And then I wasn't, you know, we had plans to do some release shows in the summer of 2020, like Germany and the Netherlands. And we were working on booking more shows. And as everything shut down, you know, I just resigned us to doing live streams and we had to do those, just the two of us. D-Bot and I are in Minnesota in the Twin Cities. And so we'd put Dine Officer back up on the screen on the drums, like stuff we had from videos, you know, that we had recorded already. And that was how we were able to make it through the pandemic and play. But yeah, I wish I could get on stage with those guys. You know, that's going to be a really happy day when that happens again.
You know, that does come up with a new answer for, you know, what do you love more, drum machines or Dine Officer? You know, if you have the drum machines and you have him on video, it's almost like you've got a Dine Officer drum machine.
It's different, but yeah, I mean, and there's some amazing technology we could use to, like, you know, sync him up if we wanted. But there's something about when we played live, our last live show as a trio was October 2019.
That was
Germany,
my last gig, yeah.
Moon Festival. Yeah, and it was, you know, to look to one side of me and I'd see Dine Officer like throwing his arms up, playing the drums and mouthing the lyrics. And I'd look to the other side and D-Bot is like, he's got his head down and he's banging his head, just going nuts on the bass. That was one of the best things I remember about Zwaremachine ever on stage. I mean, we've had a lot of good times, and D-Bot and I have played shows as a duo, and Dine Officer and I have played shows as a duo for a short tour in Europe when D-Bot couldn't make it. But the three of us together is the best of every world that I could think of.
So is there any talk about any sort of gig soon, or are you still just kind of waiting and seeing what happens?
No, we're gearing up right now for 2 shows are booked for October 2022. Okay. And one of them is called Sinners Day Festival in Belgium. and it's a really great festival. We're on the same stage on the same day as Ministry. Oh. They're one of the headliners for that night, and everyone asks if we're going to play the effigy cover, and I don't think that's going to happen. We're not going to put ourselves in that kind of position. You know, you can throw whatever you want at me, but I don't want it to be because we're playing a Ministry cover. So,
well, there's also a chance that like Al Jorgensen will replace you with a emo band or something. So, you know.
No, I think it's all cool. I'm really looking forward to that. That's just a really cool festival, and we'll also play. Probably the night before that, we'll play in the Netherlands, and we're kind of just really hesitant to book too many shows. I feel like that's going to be 50-50 if it even happens. You know, who knows where we're going to be? There's no one can tell. We can't control anything, and travel expenses are, you know, all that's like something I can't lose money. So we have to really play it cool. I mean, as much as I want to say, yeah, let's book a week and do our little tour, I don't think that's going to happen. We're just going to take it slow.
It's probably the best bet.
Yeah. And then, you know, I would be hugely disappointed if it gets canceled, but if a whole tour got canceled, that'd be even more devastating to me. So we just want to wait. Maybe this summer we'll have a better bead on how things are going.
Well, fingers crossed for everybody, but I can only imagine just the desire to get back, because as we keep talking about, there's no substitute for playing live, especially when you're performing such high octane music like this.
Yeah, and really, like I think I told you maybe during this interview or before, Zwaremachine is my vehicle for live performance. That's why we have the band. It's not, you know, it's like my main joy in life is performing live. So, as you know, all the bands that are squashed, you know, on every level, everyone's doing it because they like to get out there and play. So everyone's handcuffed and probably really disappointed that they're not out there doing it.
Well, fingers crossed that changes soon. In the meantime, folks can still listen to your music, of course. So real quick, what's the best way to find your projects online?
For sure, Bandcamp. Mm-hmm. And there's Mach FoX, MACHFOX, Bandcamp. And then and that's where we released the Fox Nova project also.
Okay.
And I just didn't want to start another page. Plus, it's sort of an outlet for Mach FoX. And then Zwaremachine, you know, we've got our own Bandcamp. And then if you want to check out our videos, those are on our official YouTube page, InPoet, INPOET, NWC. That's our YouTube channel. Okay. And I think it's /Zwaremachine or something, but
right.
We've got all our links on, you know, the Instagram and Facebook pages and everything. And I try to keep active there, like posting things and old interviews and new interviews and videos. So,
and you've got a newsletter too, right?
Yeah, we kind of keep that for our DJ promo and publications. Okay. We're not like
sending out special then. I get a newsletter.
You're our DJ friend for sure.
Yeah. You fans watching, be jealous. Be jealous.
Well, you can always reach out to us also, and I would probably give you the link to some of the DJ.
No. Let me feel special. Let me bask in this. Even if it's not true, let me bask.
Well, you are special. I really appreciate your friendship. When you said, 12 years and we've never talked, it was hard to believe. And when we started talking, it was like we always had talked, because I have been watching your live streams and you sounded like you, and it was easy to talk to you. But we have been talking through email and chat for years and years. So.
No, and you're welcome on the show anytime. It was great to have you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Anything else that you have to say before I cut you loose?
Be sure to support Subculture Talk, Subculture Shock. DJ Pat 626. You know, like, again, you're one of the best supporters out there too, for not only Zwaremachine but tons of bands that I know. So that's really cool what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate
I
it.
Well, folks.
Yeah, and thanks for tuning in.
Oh, my pleasure. Everybody, thank you very much for jumping in, for coming in to chat, for saying hi, and for watching the video. Up next, we've got the after party, so don't go anywhere. Unless you're watching on YouTube, then you can go wherever you want.
Go to info at nwc/Zwaremachine.
Go to that YouTube. Yeah, watch
Check out the new video.
Videos.